I saw my teacher, his name, and so much in his Torah. He wrote them in my heart, and then made me his servant. I say, I love Yahusha. I love him. His living water. I love it. Don't you sidestep his words, just obey and believe. Don't you sidestep his words, for his heart you will grieve.
Welcome to Torah Talk with Lew White and Mark Davidson.
It's the Torah Zone.
Hey,
How are you?
I've got it in my ear. Yeah. Oh, I'm fine. Thank you. Wonderful to see you.
Yeah, you too.
It's been an eternity, hasn't it?
It's been full on.
Yeah.
How are you, sister?
There she is.
Well, I can't hear you, but Lou says he's got you in his ear, so I guess
Well, we knew that.
that's okay.
Yeah.
I love you, brother.
Yeah, you too. Well,
Yeah.
You won't let us chat, will you?
No. Okay then. Well, hey, I hear Hector and Reese had a little baby girl.
Yeah, isn't that wonderful?
Did you ever learn the name that they
Not
chose?
yet. Not yet. I'll have to ask Amy if she found out. That's very exciting. New bubs are always
Yeah.
exciting.
Well, it's the next generation. She's one of the millennials. You know.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what I wrote. Well, I didn't write this, but the BESORAH
Yes.
of Yahusha. Now, the real thing will be about almost just shy of 2 inches thick.
Wow.
But it's the Nazarene version.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's for that generation,
Yeah.
because this isn't going to kick in right away unless Yahusha does something spectacular. But I would love it if more people would understand it. And, the message is very clear that new wine is not accepted. That's why they were shunning the name and shunning the real names of the prophets, and they were changing, with the footnotes, turning the word into wormwood, saying, "Oh, you don't have to obey that. That's for those guys," and all that. So it's just got to change. People have got to say, "You know what? I think I'll just obey the commandments. It's easier.
Yeah.
I don't have to put this tree up and
Yeah.
put this pumpkin outside and all the things that the world does." You got to choose Yahusha and say, "Wow, you're breaking through this forest for me. All I have to do is walk behind you and just follow him." And don't choose the world and get interested in all these baubles and things. But
I can't believe how much opposition you're getting from this already, and it's not even printed.
I know.
Isn't it insane?
I know. Well, the proof, the first proof, will be the real thing, but it'll be for us to look at before we order more than one. And so we have to look at it and make sure that everything is adjusted right, so that we can, and I'm not a perfectionist in the sense that everything has to be exactly. Oh, it's the wrong shade. Oh, it's there's 50 shades of gray.
Yeah.
And I'm not worried about, well, I get in the ballpark and I'm okay. Everything will be there though, but it'll be okay, But there's so much different. I mean, the first BESORAH of Yahusha, that's the original, and of course I named it, and Pam apparently copyrighted it. I had no idea of that. I just heard about that. But the thing of it is, this is nothing like that. Because I didn't even go to that to consult it, because it's what most people do is I did. I take a King James based theme, which is a very sound top way of starting it. And what you do is you have all your books and your verses and your chapters all set up. Everything's there. It's laid out, and then you have to go in and correct everything. Because we're dealing with English, and what they were doing back in the day, even in the late 1500s and the early 1600s, when the the Geneva translation and
Excuse
King
me.
James Version.
Can you ask?
Yeah.
Can you ask Phyllis to just keep it down over there with the typing?
Oh, would you knock that sound off? He was just saying, "Hey, what's all that noise?" I'm sorry. She's right over here, a few people. So
I'm teasing.
yeah. He's teasing. He's teasing. Oh, she's gone. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, the King James Version, which is also called the Authorized Version, which was a Catholic publication. See, a lot of people don't know the 1611 King James was, actually a Catholic publication, and it was in defiance of the Geneva translation, because the Geneva translation was revealing far too much. It wasn't using the right words according to them. They liked the word congregation and Tyndale's version of the scriptures previous to that, in order to accentuate the fact that the body is what is being discussed, not this hierarchy, which they call the CHURCH. Well, anyway, the King James Version was to perpetuate and to lift up this Nicolaitan thing. You know that, but a lot of people don't know that. So the words that you use actually perpetuate error, and it may be seeming subtle, but it is really serious, because Nicolaitanism, where there's a hierarchy that's over the people, is exactly what Yahusha hates. He says we're all one body, we're united in uniformity, and but the King James Version, or Authorized Version, was called the Authorized Version because the Geneva translation was not authorized to be in the kingdom. So the entire realm of the King James, was very put off by the Geneva translation, and so he commissioned the King James Version. Now, a lot of people are really hateful about it, but the King James Version offers some wonderful things. And a lot of it is the poetic elements that it has. It did perpetuate, and actually is the reason for a lot of literacy in the world today in the English language. Because people use that as a resource in order to prepare them to read and write and educate them. As a means of doing that, they use this King James Version. Now, that in itself was, I think, preparatory or preparation for the truth when it really does get revealed. Because even in the King James Version, there is a withholding of the words of Yahuwah, the drought or the famine of his word. He said that I'm going to send a famine into the land, not of food or water, but rather of my words that I have spoken. And even in spite of that, people thought that the famine's over with the King James Version, but it wasn't. Because the King James Version is completely devoid of his name, for one thing, and it uses a lot of embellished words that are enhancements, even in that day. Because when a person spoke in that day, if you want to know how they spoke like Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. That's a good reflection of the culture at the time. But the King James Version used a courtly, highbrow type of expression. And even in that day, it would cause people's eyebrows to raise. I think that's where you get the highbrow. I'm not sure about that. And maybe balding people, I don't know. You got a highbrow there, buddy. But anyway, the interesting thing is, it's okay to use that as a foundation. It's the foundation.
Yeah. And
then from that, you can go in and say, well, here's the verse, and here's the chapters, and you've got it all set up as a framework. And I suspect most every translator does that. They start out that way, because here's the thing. The imprint is there. If you go to Matthew chapter 26, verse 17, isn't it? It's early in the morning here, watch out. But it says, on the first day of unleavened bread, the disciples went to Yahusha and asked him, where would you like us to prepare to eat the Passover? Hello? Passover was the day before the first day of unleavened bread. And they don't, and then the NIV, in the footnotes, even though in the text they use that phrase, on the first day of unleavened bread, the disciples asked Yahushua, you know, where do you want to eat the Passover, or where should we prepare it? Well, now the first day of unleavened bread is the 15th of the first moon. But the ignorance of the translation, even the King James, did not know this. So what they did in the NIV is they retained the same text because they got it from the King James Version. And then they, in the footnotes, they said, well, because they are theologians, the footnote says they realized that the first day of unleavened bread would have included the 14th. And they're just making that up in order to make the translation seem to make sense. You know,
So
because unleavened, we are not required to have unleavened bread only on the 14th. But what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, what should the text say then?
Well, the word in the Greek is protos. Now, think about this. Protos has a variety of meanings, and it can mean first, as in the idea of foremost. You know, as a, hey, that's proto, you know. Or let's look at it like this. Let's say you go to the doctor, and the doctor says, well, we found some proto-cancer cells. In other words, they're not yet cancer, but they're proto-cancer or potentially cancer. And their experience tells them that cancer is near. That's what they're really saying. Now, protos means prior to. Prior to. Now, in this translation, I don't have the. I could go to it and let you know what I put in there. But
prior
it
to unleavened bread.
says prior to the day. It doesn't even say day in the text. If you look in the Greek, there's. I mean, that's all I had. You know, I have the Greek interlinear, which basically uses the King James as well. I was looking at the English words, and they took it from the King James Version, but you have to correct those things. You can't just put out a publication and say, well, here it is, errors and all, You have to try to eliminate the errors at least. Now, I don't claim that this is going to be perfect, but it's just that you have to try, make an effort to make it as correct as you can, because you're responsible as a teacher. But anyway, the permission to put this out, of course, is not granted by anybody but Yahushua, because we're handling his words. I've got some things to show you in the box of secrets that you're going to be stunned by. Some of it's pretty silly, but some of it's really important. But
I just wanted to ask what you're saying about the King James. You know how we were talking about going from Hebrew to English without bypassing all the replacement theology and paganism and all that sort of thing in Greek. What is there no texts lying around anymore in Hebrew, or can't you go to the Hebrew anymore to find the most accurate thing, or is what you're saying is the King James is the most accurate as far as sentence structure and
Oh, I'm not talking about the words themselves. I'm talking about the framework.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, there's a huge difference. The vocalization and the articulation of the words, like the names, the elimination of words. There's all kinds of gross errors in the King James Version because of the fact that they were trying their best. However, they had limited resources too. They didn't have the internet.
So they were genuine. They were okay, those translators, were they?
Well, they did the best with what they could do. I mean, you and I, or anyone today, if they were put back there with the facilities that they had, they only had the Greek, and they were working with what the Circus Fathers had delivered to them, and they were intensely Catholic in terms of the Sabbath was the first day of the week in their minds. Because, see, the old wine was determining how they interpreted the Scriptures. You see, their old wine was the teachings. The yoke that they were under was teaching them to look at things in a framework, and they thought that the execution of Yahushua, for example, was on a 6th day of the week because it said preparation day. And they didn't know what that meant, except that that would be the day before the Jewish Sabbath, as they understood it. And there's so many things that were in their wine their old wine that was misleading them. So I was not referring to the King James Version as being something that's a sound, complete item. It's just that the framework that's laid down already for navigation and, those kind of things.
It's a trustworthy framework, is it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Well, as far as us being able to do it. Now, in the arrangement of the books, I took these books and, from our last talk, I had already started on the work under another objective. I was actually working on this in a sense that I was going to restore the Aleph Tau to the text, throughout the Tanakh. And while I was engaged in that work, you didn't even know about it. I was calling it the same thing. The Nazarene version would have been restoring this Aleph Tau, and I was going to put the Aleph Tau into the title. But then, in the midst of this, I found that our brother Bill Sanford had already done this and was completed, and he completed it, had been working on it for who knows. And I just said, well, I've got to just sort of shift gears a little bit and continue on and restore the items that I need to correct. Anyway, the thing of it is, Bill Sanford's work is just wonderful. He's got a restoration of the Aleph Tau in its places wherever it is. Now, I don't know what I was going to say next.
So you pulled yours out, did you?
So I put it in the first several verses of Bereshith, Genesis. It's still, I just left a few in there just for their consideration to read and say, well, what's the Aleph Tau? Because people want to know what it is. And it's identity marker for the identity of the person that's speaking and making the covenants and all that. I was...
You're talking about the order of the books.
Oh, the order of the books, yes. Well, then after we had our discussion, I remembered that years ago, I had always thought that there was something very wrong with the order of the books in their order of presentation, not chronologically, because if you want to go chronologically, you got to start out with the book of Eo, But here's the thing. In the Brith Kadashah, as they call it, or we call it the Nazarene writings, Matthew, or Matthew, Mark, Luke, Yehukanan. There's a book in there that has your name on it, Mark.
Does too.
Just found that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I tell you. Anyway, they sound fine, but there's one problem. If you start out with the Nazarene writings, and it says, and it starts out with the lineage of Yehusha, and then it moves right into the birth or the nativity or the birth of Yehusha, and then and all those things. It reinforces this Christmas thing, that they've got going on. Even though Christmas isn't in there, they think it is when they're reading it. So they open up and they say, "Well, this is it," and they see. In their heads, they see Santa Claus in the background, flying across the moon, and there's the stable.
3 wise
and
men.
Fresh, and there's 3 wise men are coming over, and here comes the shepherds on the same night.
Big party.
Yeah, and the Magi from Babylon didn't show up until like 2 years later. But that doesn't matter. I see it all when I read Matthew.
Yeah.
It's all happening.
It's all a lovely group photo.
Yeah, and then the King James Version in Acts 12, or Acts 12, it's talking about Easter.
Yeah.
What? Come on. Anyway, the very word, it's the only translation that actually uses that word, because in all the other incidences, several dozen, the word Pascha, or Pesach, is translated, guess what? Passover. That's our translation of it. But why would you take the same Greek word, Pascha, which is really a transliteration failure of Pesach, to take one incident and use that for Easter and not all the others? Well, Pilate was a pagan, and he had his candy basket and his bunny rabbit. His chocolate bunny was ready. and he was going to release a prisoner while he chewed the ears off his chocolate bunny.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's not true. It was during the festival of the Yahudim that he was being kind, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway,
So you're not
Sorry.
going. So you're not going with Matthew number 1 now.
no, it's actually, think about it. The first book should stay as it is in the scriptures, Bereshith, which means if you understand Hebrew a little bit, you've got a 2-level thing going on. You've got a literal level and you've got an abstract level. All right, let's not go 4 or 6 or 10, but let's just do those 2. Bereshith, the letter B means in. Rashith means heads. Rashith. So Bereshith means in the heads.
It's a barley thing, is it?
No, it doesn't. It's really talking about a human head,
Okay.
or a head of any living creature, a behemoth or a beast. But it doesn't really mean that. It means in the beginning. At the head is an abstraction. So you've got in the head. Now the plural ending is a very horribly misunderstood thing among Gentiles and English-speaking people. But Bereshith, being plural, does not mean that there's beginnings, like in the beginnings, like the gap theory might. You know, people that believe in the gap theory, they see something going on between verse 1 and verse 2. There's the gap theory, and they're getting that from Kabbalah.
Okay.
You know, other outside writings. You know, a lot of people fall for that stuff because see, they are applying what Yahuwah is doing in the first day of creation and the second day, as if all the principles of physics are in play in the very first day.
Yeah.
They're not. They're not at all. He hasn't even created space yet, or time. It's still chaos. It's still chaos. I'm a huge physics buff, and I realize when I read, you know, the first chapter of Bereshith, that physics is unfolding before our eyes. Physics being physical, and the sons of Elohim, the messengers, as in it says in Eob, were singing as he was doing this. They were already creatures there, but they were spiritual beings. He hadn't created space, but you see this. That's just it, you know. Anyway, we're quick to fall for things like that. But where was I?
In the beginning.
Bereshith. Let's work with that first word.
Yeah.
The beginning was so important and big and huge and profound and grandeur, or grandiose. What it was given a plural ending. You see,
Okay.
in the beginning, being awesome. It's awesomeness. Then they put this, greatness, perfect. To understand that word as being plural, and it's applied to other pluralities, ending other words, like behemoth can mean more than one beast, or it can mean one huge beast.
Elohim's like that, isn't it?
Elohim is the
Not
same
plural,
way.
it's just huge.
That's a trick that we don't get often, and we don't hear it from teachers, is this plurality doesn't apply to just plurality. It applies to its awesomeness and its greatness.
Wow.
You know. So Bereshith, having a plural ending, gives you that hugeness of the importance of it. And it's in the beginning. It's not like in the beginnings. You know. Well, anyway, I just wanted to cover that because it's understanding. Literal, you have to be completely clear. If you get too complicated with you, like the King James Version uses a lot of words that if you use them on the street in that day, people would go, "What? Listen to this," you know. Who do you think you are? You know, no one speaks like that. Not really, unless it's some guy's holding a scroll and he's going, "Hear ye, hear ye." The king's got a message, and the message might be written in that language, or all that embellished, enhanced language. But that's what the King James Version adopted, and so it gave. But it was out of respect for Yahuwah, of course. But By eliminating his name, that doesn't show much respect, though.
The fourth book of the Gospel starts with "in the beginning" too, doesn't it?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. Here's the thing. In the beginning, and Bereshith is in the beginning. Well, Yahuchanan, the first book that we call, or the fourth gospel as they call it, is starting out with "in the beginning." So that's what I said. Oh boy, Yahusha just grabbed me and said, put that first for the Nazarene writings.
Oh,
and then it introduces you, it gives you a restart. There's we're going to have another beginning? Well, not so much. This is actually illuminating and expanding and explaining more about the first beginning and who that was. You know, and it all ties in with the Aleph Tah as a marker for the identity of him. But in the beginning starts out the Nazarene writings in this new translation, you see. Now, here's the thing. If you just wanted to just sample what it would be like to have the order of the books arranged in the right way, or a better way, and maybe not, there's better ways still probably, but take 2nd Chronicles and go to the very end and read the last chapter, and then start reading the first chapter of Daniel. And the same people are being discussed, and the same events are being discussed. And then you get this connectivity. You're going, it's a flow. You go, wow, there's this guy, and there's this guy. He's right here, and it picks right up with the very people that we're talking about, and the very things that are happening.
Chronicles is normally chucked back near Kings, isn't it?
Yeah.
1 Kings, 2 Kings, 2nd Chronicles. It's all further up the beginning, isn't it? Normally, you put it further back. You put it further down.
Yeah. Right. Well, it did disrupt the somewhat. The order that they used was to, in their heads, they have the original King James Version had an order of books that didn't even follow the Yahudim's Tanakh. It was a different order, but I like the way they used Malachi. Malachi was wonderfully placed because it was preparing you for the end times, and you know, that was good. In fact, it left off with talking about Eliyahu. Here's the thing, though. Some of the other books needed to be in a different order, you know. So we put them in a different order. I say we, meaning Yahusha, and I just followed his orders, you know. But to kind of clean up the thing. And speaking in the clearest, easiest English that was possible, rather than trying to get fancy words like enmity. Enmity. What? Who talks like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does enmity mean?
Well, enmity in its most common understood concept would be opposition.
Conflict. Yeah.
Conflict, opposition. So I use the word opposition in the text because it's the most understandable word for everybody. Like you're opposed to something, or.
Great. Can't believe how quickly you got through the what they call the New Testament. That was we were only talking it last month, and you weren't even finished the
last month. Last month, yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's a matter of repair and replace. That's what it is, and you just simply repair and replace. But you see, when he's got his hand on your shoulder, and you're reading it. And you're going from verse to verse to verse, and you're also looking at the verses around it, and you're getting the idea of what he's talking about, or whoever the speaker is. Then, when you're in that state, it's almost trance-like. You're lifted out of you're not even aware of your surroundings. You're in a completely different place, and he's using you to speak in tongues, essentially, because this is a purification of the ideas, and there was only one place where I remember using 2 words from one Hebrew word. A lot of things are straightforward, but like in the first book of in Bereshith or Genesis, the Spirit was hovering on the surface of the waters, and I understand, and it says panim, so I'm thinking I should put something more on the facial surface of the waters. so that people understand that the idea in the Hebrew is face, but it's not a human face. It's just the very outer face of the waters. And then it flashed into my head about him walking on the waters, and I'm thinking, wow, Yahushua's walking along in this giant storm, and he's just walking on the face of the waters. You know, just walking along. And it put me right back there in the beginning. And I just saw these things happening. And it seemed like the same thing was going on, you know.
Wow.
And who is the spirit of Yahuwah? You know, it's Yahusha. We know him as Yahusha. He said, I will send the Ruach HaKodesh in my name. So, what's his name? Yahusha.
Administration.
Yeah. Oh, I loved Chris and you talking on that latest video. That was brilliant. It reminded me of what I need to remember. Yeah, it was like, oh, there it is. Knowledge, but it's all brought forth by the Ruach of the Ruach HaKodesh, the Spirit of Yahusha, is the only way you can possibly remember these things. You know, he's the only way you can. He brings these things up. Do you want to look in the box of secrets?
Yeah, hell yeah. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, the word hell is actually Old English, and it means hole in the ground.
Yep.
So don't be afraid.
So you've solved all those hellfire issues in this translation? Eternal damnation and...
Oh, well, you know, I just left the word to stand on its own. It's like one person wrote, the truth is like a lion. All you have to do is release it, and it'll defend itself.
Yeah.
Anyway, see the little apple?
Apple, yeah. Ishon.
Yeah, Ishon is, the word Ish means man, and Ishon means little man. That's all it means. In Proverbs 7, verse 2, the King James Version translate that word apple. And there's no apples, you know. In fact, if you want to identify apple, even they created the idiom. I mean, the King James Version is the idiom creator, but it was an idiom in Hebrew. But the idiom doesn't come across, but it wasn't even a literal mistake. But this is the word Isham, and the Aleph is the first word, but that doesn't mean it's an A as an apple. The Ishan is the first letter in the Hebrew word, though. Yeah, but it doesn't mean apple. But what it does mean is treasure. Treasure, like a little treasure box. Well, we are the treasure. I'm going to ask a couple of questions here. Anyway, the apple of my eye, or the apple of your eye. What is the apple of his eye? Well, or I want to say the treasure of his eye. What is the treasure of his eye? That's a question. I don't want to answer it yet. And what is the treasure of our eye? Well, your children are going to like this.
Yeah.
It's a little apple. Anyway, the greatest treasure. Here's a question. What is the greatest treasure on earth to us? To us, the living words. That's the greatest treasure. It's not to most people, but to us it is. The treasure of knowing how things started, how Yahuwah loves us, and how Yahusha became a living person like us in order to show us how to walk, you know, and then dying for us. Now here is another question. What's the greatest treasure on earth to him? Well, it would have to be his Nazarene.
Yeah, his bride.
Yeah, his bride. Anyway, that's oh yeah, there's a few more little things in here. There's a lot of secrets. Actually, this is just a sampling of them, but we already talked about the gap theory a little bit, so we can forget that. If anybody has any questions on the gap theory, it's not true.
Yeah.
It's just not true. But
the gap theory is just that thing where they say in the beginning he created the heavens and the earth. Stop, and then it was without form and void, and Well, Yahuwah doesn't create anything without form and void, so surely there must have been a big fall between 1 and 2, and Satan
Well,
must
people
have fallen. Yeah.
say that they say that there was a war in heaven in that gap theory too, and it was disruptive of the creation, but the creation was still underway. The physical world had not been formed, so that it was, of course, still being formed, and the chaos that was being described is because he's making it take form and shape and order. He's bringing order out of chaos, which he didn't create the chaos. He just started with the fundamentals, the building blocks. So that was still in disorder in terms of he hadn't added the order yet. You know, there were no trees, there were no fish, there was no order. You know,
Heartbeat.
no heartbeat. No, there wasn't even a week yet. The week didn't even exist. So there was no order in the sense that he was still in the process of creating order out of the chaos, out of the beginning components, the elements that he was making. The first being water, before there was light, before there was even sound, before there was a sun or a moon. You know, he created the heavens and he created the earth in total darkness. It's hard to imagine. It wasn't like the Big Bang Theory, you know, blazing, huge explosion. It wasn't, it can't be like that, you know. And then there's the people that say, well, look at this. This galaxy is 100,000 years across, and look at that. That Andromeda galaxy, you know, it's 20 times further away or whatever, 50 or whatever it is. I've forgotten now. I'm kind of glad. But anyway, I used to know all those facts and figures about how far things were away, and quasars are the furthest thing that we can see, and those are the beginnings, and they're all in all directions, and they're the beginnings of the creation itself, you know, or the first arrival of the cosmic explosion. But they're proto-galaxies. There's that word proto. They're not galaxies because they're too small, but they're putting out more than a galaxy puts out. So, what? You know. Anyway, we have some problems with the way we speak. We're not speaking a pure lip yet, but we're getting closer and closer and closer. Not that we want to use the more correct, as we correct ourselves, we don't want to use that against others or whatever. We want to be able to change too. But I'm going to show you this word, Mesorah's vocalization and cantillation marks, which kind of gives you a musical accent, or which, you know, they were basically trying, from the 7th to the 11th centuries, they suspect that they were charates. Charates is a Hebrew word that means a sect. And of course, they came out of the rabbinical, Pharisaical sect, but they became people who emphasized the word only. You know, it was kind of like the King James people, you know, that stand on Luther's teachings. They say that it's only the word of God that we believe, you know, we should behave under, you know. Well, if that's the case, why are they still keeping Sunday? Because they're Catholic, you know, and Trinitarian, you know, mostly. The Trinity is still a stronghold for them, and the, you know, Sunday is. But anyway, these fellows they didn't just do this over a period of weeks or years, but between the 7th and the 11th centuries, you know, and I think that's about 400 years, they worked on mutilating, and a lot of people think they were correcting it, but what they were trying to do was fix it in a stable way so that everything would be the same, so that everybody would be saying the same thing in Hebrew. So they put vowel marks underneath them, you know. Those things are called nikud, you know, little markings. They're like musical symbols that you and I would read in tablature, you know, if we were reading the you know, the 11-line staff, or the 5 and 5 and then the one in the middle. But they have all these complicated things called Dagash, Patah, Kamek, Sequel, And look at these little things. They're just little T's and dots. And anyway, they didn't exist in the 6th century, and probably not even in the 7th. But you know.
So as far as pronunciation is concerned today, what did that result in?
Well, it did some good. You can't say that it didn't do some good. But what it did do is, if you read the BESORAH, or the Hebrew's training manual for young bar mitzvah children, you have this diacritical mark studies in order to say words and how to pronounce the words based on those vowel markings underneath them. And they kind of, in some cases, ignore the letters, the Hebrew word, and they say what it suggests or cues the reader to read in the bottom, like the name is not spoken. They see the vowels for Adonai on the bottom, and so that's what they say. And that diverts the name from being spoken. So the Masoretes were very strict traditionalists. That's what the word means. Masoret means a traditionalist, somebody who adheres to tradition. And what did Yahusha say about that? Yeah. He didn't like the fact that they were supplanting the words of Yahuwah for their traditions.
So what, they just ignored the tetragrammaton and took on the vowels instead?
Yep. That's it. In fact, if you were to go to Wikipedia and just look up Masoretes, I believe very early on, one of the first subjects that they deal with is the name, and that it was not spoken. And the Masoretes that's their main objective. That was to divert the speaking of the name to another word, so that it would not be spoken. And of course, where this started was, in Babylon, really, because they were already making it a stoning offense centuries before Yahusha came. And then during his stay here, there was a strict adherence to that principle, and no one said the name aloud except a priest. And they say it was only done once a year, and the high priest spoke it inside the Kodesh, the Kodeshim. So, or the inner place where the ark was, But he only said it under his breath almost, But that's not what Yahusha intended, All right, I just to withhold the name, Yahusha said, "I have revealed your name to those whom you have given me out of the world," So he had to reveal it because it wasn't known to the common person. And of course, in Psalm 118, we have verse 26, where it says, Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah. Who's saying that today?
Yeah, no.
His treasure.
His treasure.
His treasure is saying it. He knows who we are. He knows who his people are. Not that we're better. It's just that it's our job to go out and say his name. And he said we'd be persecuted for it. And of course, that's because the whole world system, including the religious, especially so, the first to stone us would not be the secular, it would be the religious.
Yeah.
Because it threatens what they've been teaching. The strongholds are being torn down. We have to do it in love, though. See, not knowledge, but in love. Our driving force. Oh, Chris, he covered that so clearly. He gets. I mean, it just pours out of the man. The understanding, the love. It's just, come on, guys, don't be so mean to one another. It's true in the real world. You only love. You only hurt the ones you love the dearest and love the most. The ones that you don't want to hurt at all. And because outsiders, you're not hurting them. Yeah. You wouldn't be able to hurt them. But the ones that we turn on are the very ones that are the closest that we cherish. And yet that's happening in the body, and it's called gangrene.
Yeah.
And it spreads. It spreads like an infection. And we must learn how to love. We've got to overcome that and consider the weak one as greater than yourself. You have knowledge, yes, but you need to be gentle with the person who's weak. Now, weak doesn't mean, I don't have any. It's talking about weak in the belief or the knowledge that you have. Yeah, you don't have. They don't have it all together. They're saying, oh, all I can do is eat vegetables. Look at that, you know.
Hmm. Yeah, it's all
Or
about diet,
whatever the detail is.
physical stuff.
That isn't. Yeah, it isn't just the. Yeah, it's all physical. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're worried about that. You know. When it actually is in the heart, the mind, the heart of the person is the seed of all the evil that comes out of them. You know, the wicked thoughts and.
Well, that's because most people come out of some kind of religion, and I mean, there's no power in any religion, so they're just so used to having to dress it up on the outside to conform.
Well, like Chris was saying, yeah, it was just like that, because Chris was talking about that. He said there's no way that we could possibly know the things that we know without Yahusha.
That's right.
Yahusha's the one that tells us this stuff and shows it to us. It comes up out of us, and and it's his behavior. It's not even our behavior. Our behavior would be vile and angry and revengeful and I've got to get even. Oh no. Yahusha just says, what am I doing that I can, how can I help you? You know, serve the other, you know. And that's why I put this on the cover. A lot of people are going to say, oh, that cover. One gentleman, a beautiful man, didn't understand this picture. He thought this was some fat guy and this is a girl. This is a picture of Yahusha who disrobed, basically. He got down to, you know, bare chest. Got down, got a bowl, a towel, and was using that towel to dry the feet that was wrapped around him. Yeah, Yahusha had pretty long hair, no doubt. You know, he wasn't a Nazarene. I mean, a Nazarite. He was a Nazarene. Yeah, he was the first actually. But the thing of it is, that this book is not a cover that people are going to go instantly and say, "Oh yeah, like that." No, this is emblematic or symbolic of a fire that's coming. There's a fire coming, and yet in the midst of that fire, there's peace and love going on, and the fire will not harm those that are peaceful, loving, serving. You know, the fire will just wash by them. Like, what? I didn't even notice that. Probably won't even singe or even move a hair on their head.
Yeah.
It'll be just like, you know who? Daniel's 3 little buddies.
That's it. Yeah.
And he's going to be with us. He said, I am with you always. And that's the beauty of this. He's with us. He's able to protect us and do our battles for us. We don't have to fear. We walk as lions in the forest of the world, you know, because we have him, and the truth is in us. And he works through us, and just like Chris was saying, he's the one that gives out all this love, you know.
Yeah. So important, the love. You just you forget about all the stuff that you were dwelling on when you're in the presence of his love, and then you've forgotten what it was that you were so stressed about. You know. But we don't expose ourselves to open ourselves up to that love half enough.
Yeah. Because we don't stop and just think, Yahusha's with me. He's not. I mean, he's the thing. He's the only important thing that is in our lives. And I mean, everything else is secondary. Then your family and, you know, the others around you. And one of the things that I had to go through this is I had to wrestle with this idea as I was studying the Hebrew and the Greek and, you know, the underlying Greek. And I don't like the Greek. I'm not people that might think, oh yeah, he believes that Greek. No, it was Aramaic originally, but then it went into Greek. And where is the Aramaic? You know, the things that a lot of people are bandying about are not real, because they say, oh, I've got the Aramaic and I've made a translation. But why are you using the King James order in Matthew 26 verse 17? If you've got the Aramaic, why are you using on the first day of the week, the first day of unleavened bread for. Well, the Aramaic wouldn't say that, you know. See, because they're not using the Aramaic, and if they are, it's a reverse translation. You know, like those people in Area 51 are reverse engineering all that alien technology.
Yeah.
Well, the people have reverse engineered the King James into Aramaic. You see?
Yeah.
Uh-oh. I think we might need a little alien spaceship somewhere.
See what I can do.
Oh boy. Well, I know you're fun. You love that stuff.
Yeah. Well,
Uh-huh.
I was just going to say you'll have to put a little footnote. You'll have to put a footnote in your scriptures about what the cover means, so you don't get,
Oh, yeah.
so you don't get enraged customers. And what's this?
What? What's this? Well, anyway, one of the struggles that I had was whether I should go ahead and do this or not. All right, what Hebrew letter does the name Abraham start with? Well, letter A. Yeah.
Did you say so?
Adam, the name Adam, starts with the letter A. It's an aleph, you know. And you know, we could go on and on and on, but what letter of the English letter, in the Hebrew too, does the word Elohim or Elah start with? How do you spell Eli in Hebrew? Well, see, this is something that it was at first traumatic for me, because I'm looking at the Hebrew, and you know, I spent a lot of time close to the Hebrew. I was up close to the fire of his word. His word is like a hammer in a fire. It's like, oh, I was wondering if I was glowing, you know, just being that close for so days and nights. Well, yeah, it was almost like that. And here's the thing. I was looking at the prophet, not the prophet, the priest, Eli. And you remember Eli, he had two sons. How do you spell Eli?
E-L-I, I don't know.
Well, that's what we think.
Yeah.
Well, it's in Hebrew, it's Aleph, Lamed, Yod. That's it. Aleph, Lamed, Yod. Aleph, Lamed is, we think, El, as a, you know, we say the same sound. Well, guess who did that to us? I suspect it was them, because they were, you know, very concerned about a lot of things, and we inherited these things through Gentile Christian interpreters. Or what is an interpreter? I've got that here somewhere. Oh, let's see. Anyway, I was going to say, it would be, now don't be offended by this because of your old wine, but do you know who it is? Did you know that Ishmael, you know, Abraham's son?
Oh.
Okay, you know where I'm going with this?
I think so.
Ishmael had been dismissed because not because of Abraham, but he was about, I don't know, 13, 14 or so, and he was somewhere like that. He was ridiculing and making fun of Ishak, Abraham and Sarah's son. So anyway, Sarah's all upset, and she says, send the woman and her son away. Well, this broke Abraham's heart. It was his firstborn son through a Hagar, you know, the Egyptian servant. So anyway, what is the name Ishmael? Is it Arabic? No? Oh, it's Hebrew. Wonder why? Well, it's because it's Hebrew. It's just Hebrew. The truth is like a lion. All you have to do is release it, and it can protect itself. The thing of it is, Ishmael is a Hebrew name, and the Arabs today, the people who speak Arabic, actually they're speaking Hebrew. You know why? Is because they are Hebrews. And a lot of people don't think, what, you know, they got a moon deity. Forget that for now. Think about this. Think about the fact that their language is still, they're naming their children Yusuf, Daoud, Adam, Ishmael, you know, and you've got Ali. Okay, what is Ali? A-L-I.
Amazing.
A-L-I.
So,
Well, yeah, he's one of those too. Actually, his name was Cassius Clay.
yeah.
He converted to Islam, which is not the faith of Abraham, Ishaq, and Yaakov.
No.
Of course, they may believe it is, but it is the language. Ali is the real name of the priest whose two sons were misbehaving.
No.
His name is not Eli, his name is Ali.
Okay.
Now, that's the truth, and it's going to upset people. So we have that, and we have the ending, and I've been doing this for decades, writing it Yisrael, and it's really Yasharal.
Okay.
It's not E-L, it's A-L, and the Arabs have been speaking a pure lip, more pure than their brothers, who we could call the Yahudim or Israel.
Yeah.
The people of the covenant were sent into the languages of the world. They've been dispersed and thrown out, come back and thrown out again, and dispersed into these nations and getting mixed in with Germanic tribes and getting mixed in with all these, different people. The Polynesians are probably elements of their language are probably closer, but because they themselves retained a lot of the language, so you have words like kahuna, and which kind of stays Kohen, priest. So you've got that going on. Well, we've talked about that before too, but the language is all messed up, partly because of the Masoretes and partly because of the fact that all this stuff. In fact, the Masoretes themselves were probably motivated by the fact that all these things had happened to the language, and it was becoming so corrupt. And so it was undergoing changes and influences. So they wanted to get it fixed so that it would be a stable thing and it would stand alone. So when they did this, they incorporated the process of not pronouncing the name, but diverting it with other vowels, and that affected other words. And then you've got this word that we've inherited, and it's only slightly off, Elohim, or Elah. It's really, now this is going to offend people. Get ready. The Islamic people know that the deity that they call is not a name. They know it's a pronoun. They call, now I'm not going to use it as a proper name, so I'm going to just say the word because it's a good, clean Hebrew word. Allah. It's actually true that is a good, clean Hebrew word. It's not Islamic. It's not a religious word for the Arabs only. This is a Hebrew word that Abraham and Ishaq, Yaakov, and even Yahusha, when he cried out, Psalm 22, when he was saying Psalm 22, if you turn to Psalm 22 and you look at your translation, whatever it might be, it says Eli, Eli, Eli. It's Ali, Ali, Lama Sabachthani. My Elohim, my Elohim. Why have you forsaken me? Well, it was upsetting to me, but I could not print an English letter that was this letter A and make it an E based on the previous errors. I had to correct that. So lovingly, we have to appeal to people and say, do not let this upset you. Let the truth be released. It'll stand on its own. It'll defend itself. But don't think for a minute that I believe, or anyone should believe, that the Islamic religion is the faith of Abraham and the faith of us. We don't believe that it is. We don't circumambulate around objects, little boxes that have who knows what in it. Well, we know what's in there. A lot of them, they don't know what's in that box, the Kaaba. But we love them. We love you. And this could be, if you open this BESORAH and you see it, and it's going to help your heart, and it's going to help someone else's heart that's trapped in a false system of belief. You do not pay homage to anything in the heavens or on the earth or under the earth. You do not do this. You do not walk around the object of your worship. Yahusha is omnipresent. He's not in a box. He's in a, his most precious container isn't something made with human hands that they claim Adam made and then Abraham rebuilt. I'm talking about the box. Well, his most precious, what did we say his most precious treasure is? His Nazarene. But it's not that we're better. It's that we want people to understand that we are his creation. All of us are. And all we have to do is engraft into the true faith of Abraham, Ishaq, and Yaakov. Ishmael wouldn't have fallen for what these people have fallen for. Ishmael was trained by Abraham. He walked in Yahusha's ways. He kept the Sabbath, the Sabbath was something from creation. A lot of people think the Sabbath wasn't around until it was given at Sinai. Well, it had to be re-given because he said remember. And the Hebrew word remember implies something. It's like Chris would say, he makes you remember stuff. Oh, I remember the Sabbath. Yeah. I've been 430 years in this place with Satan running the whole show. Dressed up like a big serpent. Wow. Big cobra head. Hey, cobra head. Sunday's not the Sabbath. What's wrong? That's because serpent has been running this thing, He delivered us from the power of Satan, Took us out and said, come on. And then his Shekinah was there. And the serpent head said, wait a minute, we let him go. Come on. And we're gonna get him back. Well, they had to go get him back. And they died. Some people say that the Pharaoh died there too, and they have found a four-spoked silver or gold chariot wheel, and there's only one that would be in that one. So it's probably that the Pharaoh died there. They probably recovered his body though, because they do have a pretty crispy looking little dried up guy that's been in a tomb that they think is the same dude that was the Pharaoh of that era. Wow, it's so.
Yeah, I was reading Todd's book the other day, the Covenants, and he was saying that just as they were given the Passover and their deliverance as a free gift, they had to attain the land. They had to be obedient and walk diligently and do what they're told, basically, if they wanted to enter the land. They didn't, and they didn't. Only 2 went in. And he was, I don't know if he's got to that point yet, but I think he's about to get to the point where he's going to say, the same is true today. Your deliverance is a free gift. But I haven't read it. I think he's going to say, if you want to make it into the kingdom, or what we understand the first resurrection, you got to be obedient. To do what you're told. Behave yourself.
And even more than that, we have to not only get our own act together, but we have to work out our deliverance. And we have to be productive. We have to say, well, let's plant and water. Let's not just worry about ourselves. That's where I came to around 1985, many, many years ago. It occurred to me that it was much more than just me worrying about me. It was more, look at these people. They're all around me, and they're very religious. But they are so off from the path. We have to help them get back. And a lot of this is something that people have put this together in a way that it looks like Yehudaism or Judaism and Christianity need to be married together again. And to an extent, there needs to be a blending. But for the most part, it's like a Venn diagram. You have 2 circles. And there's a little intersection in the middle. You've got this circle of a group, and then you've got another circle that's a completely different group. And then they blend together right here in the middle. Well, that's where we're focusing, is where they are supposed to be. And we need to pull these 2 things together so that they're all united. But that's going to be very difficult because both of them are loaded with old wine.
Bring the sticks together.
Yeah. That's another way of looking at it. That's what Yahusha used as an example. And Ezekiel, I said Ezekiel, Yehezkel.
Ezekiel.
Yehezkel.
So we're replacing most of the E's now with A's, are we?
I'm afraid so, because it's just not right. You don't write an A and then say, well, they're using A. Let's not use the A. Let's use an E. Well, you know, why not use an H? You know,
Just say Yahweh.
that's what's.
Say
Oh,
Yahweh
let's
while you're at it too.
let's use a letter that never even existed. A W.
W, yeah.
Yeah, let's just put a W.
Or a J.
Well, you know, well, you say something often enough though, and it becomes the truth to you. You know, it doesn't mean it is true. It just becomes the truth to you. Just but not to be angry or hateful. Just accept it. If you don't think that there's something wrong, just say, okay. Remember the weaker person, and say, okay. But if the person that has knowledge is ugly and mean and starts thumping on the table and gets angry and red-faced, then, oh, that's not Yahusha speaking. Who are you? What is your name, demon? Be kind. What is the fruit of the Spirit? Do you know what the fruits of the Spirit are? The fruits of the Spirit, it would be Yahusha's Spirit. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and self-control. What? You know, and which one of those fruits are you violating or not showing? You know, well, the ugliness in people is not the fruits of Yahusha's Spirit, you know. Yahusha's Spirit is love. That's the first one. Joy, peace, patience. How about that kindness? Where's your kindness? You know, but if you don't accept it right now, that's okay. Just plant the seed. Say, here you are. And that might heal people in their hearts and their attitudes towards some of these weird sects, the outsiders, the Muslims. And maybe the Muslim will start looking at it and go, wait a minute, you're using the right word here. The right word to them. And they're going, yeah, wait a minute, who is this Allah? That's not a name. They know that. This Allah has a name. In, what is it? Bereshith chapter 2, verse 4 is the first use, I think, of the name. Of course, I've only been working on this translation, so I might be wrong, but somebody might find it to be error. But I basically remember it as Bereshith chapter 2, verse 4, where the name is first used.
Yahusha's name?
No, Yahuwah. Yahuwah.
Yeah.
So maybe in some prison somewhere, somebody has time and they're in Islam, and they start reading a copy of the BESORAH of Yahusha Nazarene version, and they go, wait a minute, this is it. And then, or maybe someone will share it with them and go, you know, the name Allah is in here. What about that? And after I'm dead and gone, dried up, and if Yahusha hasn't come, maybe someone will be affected by that later on, and they'll say, oh, wait a minute, this one has it right. You know, the others don't, you know, exactly.
Yeah.
But then there's the King James people, you know, they're going to be upset, because back in the days when King James was actually being written by these scholars, they were, they had experienced something like 1,200 years of the Latin Vulgate as being the only inspired Latin scripture, you know. That's all they had, you know.
Yeah.
But when things are inspired, though, they're inspired in pieces sometimes in the translations. So I would say that a person that picks this translation up and says, well, let me test this with my favorite verse. Let me just look up my favorite verse, or the verse that I think is the most difficult passage, and just check it out. You know, look at it and say, well, I get it, you know. If it comes through clearly in the context, that's what matters.
So have you finished? It's going to be hard to put it to print, because Yahusha's always talking. You said that the day you send it to print, he'll send you some more stuff to change.
I'm open to that. Yes.
Yeah, of course.
Always. But yes, and I will. You know, but I have the proof coming. So when the proof gets here, we'll have to look that over with, with a fine-tooth comb. And but
Well, that's what Chris was saying yesterday. I said you were thinking of sending some through to a few of us to proof it. He said you should assign different books to different people so it doesn't take forever to get it proofed.
I heard him say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's,
Oh, he said that on the video, did he? Great.
That's a good idea. I heard. I remember him saying that. I don't know where I heard it, but the thing we need to do is probably do that. Get say around 10 different people working on going through and seeing if they can find room for improvement. But in the meantime, I think we're probably going to have to get it going. After we've given it a general look. I mean, I've got a lot of my favorite pet areas of Scripture, which, if we can get those correct, Psalm 22, Psalm 23, Psalm 119.
Yeah.
Whoa. Yeah. But oh, and there's one little fun thing that I want to mention to you that's going to be, I don't know how it's going to work, but when you're holding it, this is a mock, this isn't real, but when we get it, I wish it had been here. When you're looking at it like this, and you're flipping through the pages.
What if you got a little guy on a bike or something riding across the page?
Wow, I didn't think about that. That'd be cool. Little guy riding a bike. Yeah. No. Okay. I'm sorry about this chair. This chair's squeaking too.
Oh, that's all right.
Anyway, when you're flipping through and you look for First Chronicles, Second Chronicles, King, I've got both there. But on the edge here, in big, it's a wide font. You can actually see where the first page of the prophet or the book starts. And when you're back here, you'll see Yahuchanan and John. I wrote John too, so that people would understand that. And then one of the really neat things is when the name of the book is up here, like the name of the prophet will be there. And I've got what the name means in small italics, what the name actually means. Daniel or Nahum or Ika or Lamentations. The Hebrew name is there, and the English that we understand too. But what it means too is there, which is going to give an illumination for the people that are first starting, and even those that have been doing this for decades, because they can go, "Oh, I knew I liked that word, and I like this word too." And then, "Oh, I see that. I now I know what it means. I read about that once." Well, it'll always be in their hands. They won't have to go elsewhere to find out what does that mean. So it'll be right where it needs to be.
Fantastic.
And it's going to be awesome. I mean, the navigational little things that are different.
Amazing.
I hope I haven't seen it yet, but I just I just think it's really interesting though when you're looking at a prophet's name, for example, everybody knows Joel, and everybody knows it's really Ya'al or Ya'al. That's what it really Ya'al.
Yeah.
Sounds kind of Islamic, but it isn't, because you know what? They're speaking Hebrew.
Yeah.
They are Hebrews.
They
are. Yeah. Well, you see, Ishmael had 12 princes, just like Yaakov had 12 princes. He was blessed. But it isn't going to happen until the last days that the BESORAH is going to go forth and be spoken to all nations. And then the end will come. But I don't know if this is the very BESORAH or not. But it is the Nazarene version. And his Nazarene version.
This is why you really wanted that BESORAH word there, because of that scripture.
It's not just that scripture. It's all over the book.
Yeah.
In his word, the word BESORAH is there. It's all over the place in the Hebrew. He wouldn't have been speaking Greek or English or any of those, or Korean. He'd be speaking Hebrew. And of course, the word gospel is the word BESORAH.
Mm.
That's what it is.
But I mean, when the text where it says that it will be proclaimed all across the world, and then the end
Yeah.
will come. Yeah, because we don't see it being proclaimed across the whole world, do we?
No, not really. Well, in a way, it is there. People are waiting for the fullness of time when the famine is over, and then the BESORAH goes forth, the true message. We've got to get some truth. If you get truth and you make it clear, and then understanding follows, because the lion is going to be released and it will defend itself. But yeah, the Matthew 24 verse 14. And that area is about the tribulation period. When will these things be at the end? Tell us. Matthew 24. And in the midst of that, in verse 14, it says, and this BESORAH of the reign, in other words, the kingdom that's coming, shall be proclaimed in all the world as a witness to all the nations, and then the end shall come. Okay, so we know that when the BESORAH is announced into the whole world as a witness to all the nations, then the end will come. We can rely on that. Oh, yes. Anyway, I've got a little synopsis of our buddy here. We were talking about our good, clean Hebrew word, Allah, which Abraham would have spoken without thinking anything of it. Yishmael is also, in the English letters, there's that ending, see, A-L. It means Elohim hears.
I can't see that.
Oh. See it? Allah, that's plural. Elohim hears. But the plurality, of course, is his greatness. That's what Yishmael means. Now, what is that? Is that Arabic?
No.
No, it's Hebrew. What do you think Abraham named his firstborn child an Arabic name? Anyway, look at this. And in verse 12 of Bereshith 16, it says that he's going to be a wild man, and everyone's hand is going to be against him, and his hand against theirs. And that's not too far off, is it? We're talking conflicts. But when he was born, Abram was 86 years old, and then, what is that, 14 years later, Abraham's 99, or is it 13? He's renamed Abraham when he's 99, and on the 8th day of Ishak's birth, he's breathed Milah, and that would be the cutting. That's breathe means cut. That's means covenant also. It's what we get the word covenant from. Is breathe, to cut, and that's of course cutting in the circumcision. Now in Bereshith 17, the very next chapter, chapter 20, Yishmael is promised to have a blessing of having 12 tribes, and they're tribal. They are still tribal. They have a lot of impediments, just like Christians do, in their belief system. You know, I mean, we're far off from being focused. We've got three groups. We've got Christians, we've got Muslims, and we've got Yahudim, or Yisrael, the Orthodox, if you want to call them. We got all three of those groups, and they're all swirling around. And all we have to do in the middle of it all is be that one little anchor and go, you got a little bit right there, you got a little bit right there, you got a little bit right there. This is right. Now let this spread, and then come on in. You have to come into this belief and accept Yahusha himself, the presence, into your heart, so that he gives you that love, you know, the ability to help people, you know. So
that's very encouraging. That's amazing, mate. You're not letting any of the madness that you're seeing around you affect you or discourage you, are you? You're even looking past your own life. That blew me away. That blew me away when you said that. You said, this book may not even be popular while I'm alive, you said before. I thought, wow, that's looking ahead, isn't it? That's amazing. That's really taking the task you've been given seriously.
If Yahusha blesses me and takes me out of the world today, I've done my work. that I was put here to do. But if he lets me remain to enjoy to see the happiness and the fruit of other people being fed and watered and seed planted where it had never been and accepted by people, then, but of course, whenever the truth is out there, aren't there three stages? Yeah. At first, it's thought to be ridiculous. And then second, it's violently opposed. And then finally, it's accepted as being completely obvious. Well, everybody can see this. I mean, this is true. It's because it doesn't need to be defended. Truth is like a lion. You just release it. It doesn't, watch out, little kitty cat's going to get hurt. No, he's not. He's got big teeth and giant claws. And he looks really scary. That's why I think the emblem of Yehuda being a lion is very good. Because he's the source of the truth. He's the king, and he's coming as a lion. And a lion doesn't need defending. It's like, watch out for the little lizard. You don't want to step on him. Well, he's not a lizard. He's not a dragon. This lion is the lion of Yehuda, and he's living in us. It's not us. We're flesh, but he is able to defend us. That's all we have to do. Don't be afraid. You were saying all this stuff going on around me. I'm not even noticing it. I don't even know what you're talking about. Do you know something I don't know?
Oh, I just mean the madness you see on the internet all the time, and even about this BESORAH that you're making. There's always stuff and people and saying stuff, and anytime you try to step forward, there's always people with hooks trying to
hold you back.
And all this stuff, and everybody out there with a mouth, and I probably just have to stop taking things personally. Pass the test.
Yeah, that's probably it, eh? We're going to have to just let Yahusha fight our battles. Yeah. And I just have all these, so much in my head that from having been so close to all this for so long now, and I don't want to go away from it. I want to be drawn more and more closely to it. But the working with the Hebrew words is going to clean your act up. It really is. And I feel like I'm just a child trying to learn a primitive alphabet. Like when I was in school, I don't think I had any mastery of the language until I basically started to reach middle high school, like 2 or 3 years into high school. I was, learning all the time, and I feel like I'm still doing that, but I'm just starting out. I feel like, but the people that get the idea that they understand Hebrew, they're only fooling themselves. I'm convinced of that. If I spent another 100 years working on the Hebrew, I'd still feel the same way I do right now. And I would probably hope that I wouldn't be so cantankerous and critical of other people that have different opinions. Because you see, you're dealing with opinions. See, what it is if you've got a language with an alphabet, you can see the language, you can see the alphabet. They're two separate things. One is a written form of the language. Now, if you transliterate into Greek or English or any language, the words, that's interpretation. See, that's an interpreter. An interpreter, well, not really an interpreter. An interpreter would be necessary. If you had to get an equivalent word, that wouldn't be a transliteration, it would be a translation. Let's say you translate the word shalom into English, it would mean a lot of words. It would mean peace, completion, and all those sorts of ideas. Perfection, shalom. But we've got the transliteration would be taking the new letters of the target language and using those to make the sound. Transliterate, to literate it. Literacy means you're a person of letters. So you use the sound of the word and convey it with the other language's letters.
Latin letters.
Yeah, still shalom. I mean,
Right.
you know, it sounds just like that. You know, the word, a name or a Hebrew word can be transliterated or letterated into another language and sound the same. But you have to understand the definition is a translation of that, the definition of the word or the meaning of it. And it can be a verb or a noun or an adjective or some abstraction if it's idiomatic. If you brought some of these things, like I caught him red-handed, into Korean, they would be seeing red hands in their head. They'd be going, red hand. Yeah, I know what a red is. I know what a hand is. But they wouldn't get the abstraction of it, you know, the idiom.
Slang.
That's why when people are here and you start using idioms with them and they're from another language, they don't get it. You know, what are you saying? You know,
We
it's a
understand that. No one understands us.
oh, oh, you Australians have got
Yeah.
some great.
Looks like
Yeah.
a dead dog's dinner. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of language, I got excited the other day. I got this little book in the mail for my course, and it was all about you know, market branding and logos and fonts and typeface and all that sort of thing. And right on the 4th or 5th page, because it's just filled with fonts and all these different things. And right on the 4th page, I just jumped off it. That's Paleo Hebrew, you know, right there in front of me. Of course, they called it Ancient Phoenician.
Of course.
But after our Vikings episode, I thought, I know what that means. You know?
Yeah. Those Phoenicians taught those Hebrews how to write.
That's it.
Right. Yeah.
Where
Sure.
the Phoenicians come from.
Yeah. Well, they're sea peoples.
Yeah.
Well,
So
yeah.
that was
There's a lot
amazing.
of. Yeah.
It's they're right. It's right there in their book, and they don't even know what it is. So,
No, they're not aware of it. But yeah, you look up in the encyclopedias, and many people create charts, and they name it Phoenician. You know, here's the Phoenician alphabet, and here's the modern Hebrew. Well, actually, modern Hebrew isn't even Hebrew. It's Aramaic. It's the language of Arab. It came from Babylon. It's Babylon's alphabet. Modern Hebrew.
and of course, the ancient Phoenician was all pictures, apparently. So it's like, no, sorry.
Well, the pictographics, it is true that the images of Paleo or ancient Hebrew are pictographic. Yes, they are. But they're not learning. It isn't so much coming from Egyptian stuff. Now, there is something going around the internet that has this little hand and little guy that's standing like this. And all those things are, there's a few characters, but there's not a full alphabet. I mean, they borrow and people make charts and they make a complete alphabet out of it. But in reality, this came from some area in the Sinai where there was these Hyksos who were Canaanite people who were illiterate, but they were working in the mines. And it was for this mistress of turquoise, Hathor. And she had a temple there in the Sinai. And nearby were these mines. And the Hyksos from Canaanites, were down there working as slaves in these mines. And they were seeing a lot of, because it was an Egyptian thing, very close across the Yam Suf there. And they had this temple there, but they saw all these monuments with hieroglyphics on them, you know, a pictographic language. And in the caves, they would imitate the characters that they saw. And there was not a language there. It was just a bunch of symbols. Like they learned a symbol and they learned another symbol. And there's probably less than 10 symbols in these caves. And they have these little things, these little they think that this little guy with that they call a letter Hey in Hebrew is this little man. It's Egyptian. And the Canaanites wrote it down in their primitive way in these caves on the walls, and they're trying to figure out what they're doing. But it probably says something like Alibaba was here or something. But it doesn't say Yahuwah. You don't see that. But yet on the internet you see all these displays of Yod Hey Ua Hey in a Hyksos Canaanite Egyptian interpretation that they put together. This has never been found anywhere. This thing that they write has never been found. Now, I'm sorry I sound sarcastic.
Yeah.
But I'm not. I'm just telling you the truth.
Mm.
But Yahuwah's name in Paleo Hebrew is original.
Mm.
It's Paleo is not these two alpha. There's not two ancient Hebrews.
It
There's
is.
only one.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's in the
Yeah.
Ten Commandments. It's true.
Yeah.
The movie, I mean.
Oh, yeah. We've got some old film clip here.
That was my sarcasm. Sorry.
That was great.
Yeah. Well, it's been
I
an
hope
hour and a
people-
half, mate. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Oh.
I'm
my.
full.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll let you go, and I
Um,
love seeing you again. And thank you
Yeah.
for making this possible.
Oh, it's amazing.
You want to say something?
Brother Mark.
How you been?
Oh, I've been great. We love working here together and
Yeah.
packing books and.
That's
But
what we got to do.
Must be so much easier now, eh?
yeah, it is. We're making a lot more mistakes than were being made before, but we're learning.
Yeah. Somebody ordered 55 bookmarks, like these, the Ten Commandments,
Yeah.
and I think we only sent him about half of them.
And I was trying to send him extra,
Yeah.
and somehow extra turned into not enough.
Yeah.
Well, I don't
Oh.
want to keep.
So
I love you.
Shelby used to do all that stuff, did she?
Yeah, Shelby and David.
David.
Yeah. Shelby and David did. They never made any mistakes. I mean,
Wow.
maybe once or twice a year.
Mm.
But
Mark, you're not catching a cold, are you?
Oh, I'm actually coming to the end of one. It's
Oh.
freezing cold here. So,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I can't do anything about that.
Yeah.
are your vehicles all okay now?
Yeah, they're great. We got our car back, and I have news in probably after summer, which is about second month, maybe third month next year, probably before Passover. We're moving back to Atherton.
That's the news that we're going to tell us, right?
Yeah, and Chris and Victoria, their son is going. They want to go down to the Sunshine Coast, which is about closer down the Gold Coast in Queensland. They want to do things down there, so they'll have just the two of them in the salon. So they said, "Would you like to rent a chair and run your own little business in our salon?" I said, "Hell yeah, it's wonderful." So so I'll be doing that.
That's
So
good
they're
news.
excited. We're excited. So it's
Yeah.
Amy's really excited. She's wanted to get up to Atherton for years. Back to Atherton. It's a lot warmer and lovely.
Now that's in the northern up to the northeast.
It's nearly right up the tip. Not on the tip, but it's just up. Yeah,
Yeah.
where it starts
so
to go across. Yeah,
tropical palm trees and things.
yeah, right near Cairns. Yeah,
Oh, yeah. You'll be close to Chris and Victoria then.
we'll be in the same town.
He's going to be working with them.
Well, there you go. He's going to give you a chair. That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's amazing because I'm just working on a wage here, and it's pretty hard to, get ahead on a wage. So it'll be great doing that. And Amy can teach singing up there too after hours once I get home. And she had a clientele up there back when we were there. Ever since we left there, she hasn't seemed to find anybody who's interested. But up there was. And
Well, that's great.
she'll be a trained beauty therapist by then as well. She's nearly finished her training. So all the manicure and pedicures and waxing and nails and massage, and she'll know how to do all that. So
Wow.
because we were getting ready to hit the road again. And Chris said, "Well, do you really want to go on the road, or what are your plans?" And we said, "Well, we don't know what our plans are. We don't have any. We're coming up to see you guys, though." He said, "Well, would you like to rent a chair?" I said, "Yeah, that'd be great."
Oh, that sounds wonderful. When's that going to happen?
That'll be probably, I reckon it'll be around Passover.
Spring,
Yeah.
fall for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Once we...
That's
Yeah.
really great to look
So
forward
it'll
to.
be good.
Oh,
Yeah.
lovely.
And
Oh,
we just feel so happy. It's like going home,
I know. Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I feel like if we ever move there, that's where we need to be. And,
yeah.
we'll be home.
Yeah.
That's where you started when you first had a shop, right?
Yeah. My first shop was in Atherton. Yeah. Yeah. So, amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Mm.
Well, I know it's getting late for you. We don't want to
Yeah.
keep.
That's all right. I'm having a ball. So you got the house to yourselves now. Is Adam gone?
Adam moved into
Yeah.
our other,
Our
facility.
other, that other building where we were doing the packing over there.
Yeah.
He's at the islands.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's several people
Yeah.
that live there
Oh.
upstairs, and they're renting the upstairs, helping us pay the mortgage. And
Okay.
if we ever sell that building, then we'd be able to do whatever we'd like, get out of debt. And
So the boys are running the shop now, are they? You don't have to go in.
not very much. I hardly ever go there anymore.
Wow.
I've been working on this. That's what's given
That's
me
a huge shift.
I've been doing this,
Yeah.
for so many months now, and I've got the thing finished because I've been able to stay here
Yeah.
round the clock. It feels like I've been working 3 shifts.
Wow.
Do I look pretty beat up?
The first thing I thought when you came on was you look really tired.
Oh, well, yeah, that's what it is then. Well, it was great seeing Chris yesterday. I saw that video and I just went, oh, there he is.
Yeah.
And it was so great to see you guys talking about the things that are true. I like you with the orange hair and
but it didn't work though.
Okay, the phone, but you had that doll or whatever in the middle, and then your hair, looked just like it.
Yeah.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful stuff. All right.
That's great. Well, we'll catch. So, what are you doing now? You don't have any seminars to prepare for, or you finished the BESORAH? You just taking notes as usual?
Oh, you mean like what am I going to do today? I'm going to be Phyllis and I are going to be working on this job, but we got this new job. It's just answering phones. I still work on email, answering people and things. You got that one on the what was it? Some sort of a question a lady sister asked about the Noahide laws.
Yes.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's 8 people. There's 8 people. That's all there are on the planet.
Yeah.
And the Noahide laws. Now, where is the Noahide laws ever mentioned anywhere else? Well, it's not even called that, But it's for everybody. We're not supposed to say, "Oh, let's eat an animal and leave them alive." You don't do that. So, whatever. Not supposed to do that. Well, anyway, I'm going to let you go. I know it's really late.
That's all right, mate. I love you guys.
Love you, and we'll see you whenever. Give me a call.
Well, whenever you got something to say, let me know.
Will do.
I don't care if it's weekly, monthly, whatever you want. So,
all right.
Minute you got something to say let's Skype.
Yeah, and if you've got something to say and you want to bounce it off of somebody that wants to hear it, I'll be the one if you need it.
All right, we'll do.
Well,
enjoy your day, mate.
Love you. All right, bye-bye.
See you later.
Darwin